I just finished season 1 of Interview with a Vampire, and while it does deviate from the vampire lore in some areas, it also spiritually embodies everything that these characters and these books represent. And that's why I love it. So if you didn't know this about me, hello, my name's Amanda. I am a big fan of the Vampire Chronicles, and I have been for years. These are some of my most nearest and dearest books of all time. And that is why it has taken me so long to get to watch Interview with the Vampire. I know. But I was very nervous about this show when it was first announced. And then fortunately, over time, I have heard better and better word of mouth. I saw a few little parts of the show that made me intrigued. And eventually, I have finally come around to watching it. And actually, I don't know if you've seen it, but if you have not, I recently reviewed episodes 1 and 2 of the first season. So if you want to check my first thoughts out on this, you can over there. But we are going to be talking about my thoughts on the rest of the season here in the season. Overall, season 1 of Interview with the Vampire, what did I think of it as someone that loves the books and just as someone that loves vampires? And how do I feel about the changes that it makes from the books? Because there are areas, like I said, where it deviates. Is it good? Is it bad? Let's find out. Now, I want to start off with the thing that really hooked me at the beginning. I talked about it a little bit in my episodes 1 and 2 review, but we are here to talk about the atmosphere. And there is even more that I want to say about this in this season. It is tied up in the costumes, the sets, the props, even the lighting. My goodness, the lighting in this show. It is great. And it is all there to serve the tone of the show. It's there to embody the emotions of a scene. It's there as an extension of character. The thing about the atmosphere in this show is that it's different from other projects because it feels almost like a living, breathing part of the production. It is not just there to set a scene or be a backdrop. It is a part of who these characters are. Oftentimes we are in Lestat and Louis' home as well. So the way that all of that is presented is a reflection of who they are as people. And later, who Claudia is as a person, especially we spend some time, in her room, what their coffins look like. The fact that, they got to decide what these coffins were going to look like, that the cast were actually consulted on what they think their character's coffin would be is like, that's important. That's detail. And I love that they had opinions on it because these are also actors that clearly understand the roles. Speaking of that, I want to talk about the person that leads us through this journey of season 1, and that is mainly Louis de Pointe du Lac. There's obviously a little bit of Daniel in there too, but I want to take a moment to highlight Louis because I personally think Jacob Anderson, one of the best casts for Louis we could have ever asked for. He clearly understands the character inside and out, and it shows in the series. And it also shows in the script for this show as well, which I think is very well done. We'll talk about that a little bit more later. But when it comes to Anderson's performance as Louis, it's just he embodies all of the things that make Louis such a lovable character, sometimes such a frustrating character, and really one of the most human characters we have of our vampires. I mean, that is what makes him so desirable, is his mortality, his humanity, and it's something that he holds on to. He feels a lot of guilt. He is oftentimes one of the gentlest and kindest souls, but there is also a lot of repressed stuff going on with Louis in this show. I mean, in this case, we go into his sexuality, which is another sort of dimension that they added, but that I think was always really present in the books as well. Like, it might not be outwardly stated because of the time period that the books were written in, but it's implied. I mean, Interview with a Vampire, I think, is a very queer story. I think that's always been in there. So I think that they really just captured every dimension of Louis in this show, and it's perfect. It's just Louis is the heart of everything, and that's what makes him so desirable. And that's important as well in understanding his relationship with Lestat even, because when you think about Lestat and Louis, it's important to understand what the appeal is for both sides. And for Lestat, it's really Louis' humanity, I think, that he's most attracted to. Well, it might not seem this way based on season 1. I know from my reading of the books that Lestat is actually fascinated with humanity. I think it's the artist in him, the poet in him. It's the human in him that he wants to hold on to, and he struggles a lot with the monster inside of him. And I love how Lestat is a character that, well, we don't get into it in this show. That is a part of what informs how he responds to people, because he doesn't have all the answers. He doesn't know what to say to these people. And that's why when he creates both Louis and Claudia and they have all these questions, he really doesn't have answers for them. It makes him seem really cruel when you're looking at it from Louis's eyes in this story. But I think they really played with a really cool idea of showing who these characters are through different viewpoints. So right now we're seeing like Louis through Louis's eyes and Lestat through Louis's eyes. And that also colors part of the tale. I love how the narration that we get, where Daniel's kind of poking holes sometimes in Louis's story through the interview, shows us more of the fuller picture in this show, because that is something that I think you miss out on a little bit from the first book, but that this show highlights, which is relevant to the larger story of the Vampire Chronicles. And we're going to talk about the idea of the larger element of the Vampire Chronicles when we get into some more stuff regarding the books. But before we do that, I also want to talk about how that's important to understanding, you know, Lestat and Louis. Like I said, it's this idea of understanding who they are throughout the entire journey and bringing that to the table here as we unpack what their relationship is together. And they have such a complex relationship. And I personally loved their love story in this. I love that they aren't a perfect couple. They fight. They have these differences. They have, in some cases, unreconcilable differences. And yet, despite all of it, they stay together. Even though at times it is toxic, I think. The relationship can be toxic, but they truly do love each other. And I just love this little family that we get. We get our Uncle Louis, our Uncle Les, and of course, in comes Claudia. And I know this is a character that probably a lot of people were curious to see what my thoughts are going to be. And I will say initially, Claudia kind of got on my nerves, but I think that's important for the character of Claudia, you know? She is kind of a little shit disturber. She kind of is a brat. She is a product of both of her parents, right? So there's a bit of Louis in there, and there's a bit of Lestat in there, and Lestat is nothing if not the brat prince. And so, of course, Claudia also takes after her father, her maker, her creator. And I just love seeing this family unit and seeing how all three of these characters play off of each other and seeing how their dynamic changes, especially as Claudia evolves and grows up and goes through her own journey. Because something that is very important with Claudia is that journey where she goes from being this young vampire to being molded by these two to kind of wanting more than what she has. And I mean, I love that they refer to that element of Claudia as well in this story. I want more. If you don't know, that's also the name of Claudia's song in the musical. There was actually a stage musical for Lestat. This is how much of a fan I am, okay? I know about the musical that did not last long. Sadly, I actually think the music was really good for the musical. And Claudia has a whole song where she sings, I want more, I want more. And it's amazing. But musical aside, there's just so many fun references in general in this show. My favorite thing, though, about Claudia is that they did nail her journey, her evolution from that youth to this woman to realizing, you know, I'm stuck in this, I'm trapped basically in this doll-like form forever. And while they did make some changes to Claudia, obviously they aged her up a bit, I think this also kind of makes sense considering where we're at right now and kind of where her story goes. They curbed her story in some ways, but I think it's really in a way to modernize these tales for the audience today and think about what are our sensibilities like today and how does the story translate to a modern audience. So there's a bit of a modernization to it. So I think all the changes they made were things that they felt were necessary that actually make the show appeal more to audiences today. It allows the show to connect more with a modern audience so that they really feel it when they're watching the series. And what that does is it actually allows us to bring in a newer audience, which I think is really great. So yeah, some of the scenes are different, just like the way that they happen, but there's so many references to the books and even Interview with the Vampire, the movie as well in this. There are so many little like Easter eggs and literally verbatim lines that are from the books. Like, I haven't gone back and, cited all of them. But I did see a Reddit post where someone compiled quotes that appear in the show that are from the book and from the movie. And I was like, dang, that's a lot. Although there are scenes that are approached differently, like Louis's brother's death, the way that happens is different. Or when Lestat turns Louis, that's different. There are elements that have been changed. The fact that they don't go to Paris and they stay in New Orleans. But it all makes sense what we're doing with the story when this show came out in 2022. And it also makes sense in retrospect when you consider that, we have all of these stories now. We have the lore. We have the history. We know where the story goes. So how do we play with that? And I think us kind of doing a little bit of a revision to some things, some retcons here and there to kind of just smooth some things out and package it in a way that is exciting for people that are new, that are getting into it, is really smart, because it's just interesting for people that have read the books, because this, like I said, stays true to the ideas of who these people are, to the story that's being told and what it's really about. And then the other thing that I think is cool about it is it gives us something fresh. So I mean, like, I have the books, I can read them at any time. I have the movie, I can watch it at any time. And now I have this show, and this show is just doing something so exciting and new, and yet still honoring everything that we've had before, because it references all of it. Like, what more could you ask for with that? That's everything I could ask for as a fan. And my other favorite thing is that because you don't need to have understanding of other things, but there are still little references there for those of us that know, this is a show that is bringing in so many new fans, I think, to the fandom. And I just think that's amazing. Like, I love more people that know the Vampire Chronicles, because it means more people I can talk about the Vampire Chronicles with and just like nerd out and talk about the show and nerd out. And I love that. Like, as a fan, that's what I love, watching the fandom grow and expand, and more people come in and discover these characters and these stories that hold such a close place in my heart. I love that other people are having that experience. And I hope it's bringing some people to the books too, because the books are amazing. If you haven't read the books, I highly recommend them. Like, I know it's taken me a while to get to the series, so you might be wondering to yourself, like, well, how could she be a real fan? She says, but why is it taking so long? But like, I literally bought this blazer when the show came out. This is an interview with the Vampire blazer, by the way. It has a little bat pin on the cuff here. These are coffins, and they are the initials, Louis, Claudia, Lestat. It's their little coffins. And the inside lining says interview with a vampire with fangs on it. So this blazer that has like a little floaty Victorian bit at the end, I got this when the series came out from Hot Topic, which I'm an affiliate, by the way. If you want to check out my storefront, I put fashion that I like wearing from Hot Topic on there. I freaking love. I have so many things from Hot Topic. I already gushed about Sam Reed in my episode 1 and 2 review, so I'm not going to do that here. If you want to hear me talk about Sam Reed more, you can check that out. But he's amazing. I'm just going to say he's amazing. He is Lestat. He was born to play Lestat, and I am sad that Anne Rice does not get to see his portrayal of Lestat, because I personally think she would have loved it. I think he's amazing. He's perfect, and I couldn't ask for a better Lestat in my life. I'm so excited to see where the series goes, and I think the retrospect for his character, getting to show the softer sides of Lestat in this season and the reasons really why Louis falls for him, but yet also layer in all the complexity of the scary elements of Lestat, about how he can at times be a villain. It's just, there's so much in there. It's such a rich character exploration, and I can't wait to see where we're going with the vampire Lestat. Like I said, I think this retrospect is just really cool that we're getting to do that and getting to take the story and find ways to present it so that it's like all of the elements have been there, so when we go dive deeper into it, it's just so rewarding for viewers of the show. Like, for example, the twist we get at the end with the vampire Armand, like, oh, so good. And it's so funny because I had seen a little bit of the show, and I did think I knew what Armand kind of looked like in the show, but I also just got a vibe. I love how the casting is so good that just from a character being in a room, they don't even have to like really do much. They could just be there existing. And I feel like I already know what character that is. Even if a character doesn't match the exact version I had in my mind or whatever, I know who they are because they are embodying them fully. So when Armand first appeared near the beginning of this show, and he's introduced to us as Rashid, Louis' right-hand man, I was immediately like, isn't that Armand? And I did a Discord watch-along party when I was watching this, and people in my Discord were like, what? No, that's Rashid. And I feel like if those of you said that and you knew, good job, because you threw me off the scent for a bit. But then the show comes back around and it drops those clues. And I was like, wait a minute. But people told me that was Rashid, not Armand. So when the reveal happened at the end, I literally shouted, I knew it at my monitor. It was great. It was a delight. And I'm so glad that I got to have that experience. And I'm so excited to learn more about, of course, Louis' one true love, Armand. The Vampire Armand is such a fascinating one. And there's actually a whole Vampire Chronicle on Armand. So if you want to know more about him, if you love him in the show, there's a whole book on Armand. And, you know, I'm sure there'll be differences from some of the stuff that they're doing in the show. But, dude, The Vampire Armand is actually a great freaking book. I highly recommend you check it out. I love that book. So that's pretty much all I have to say about this. I think I've talked long enough. I think I've got my point across. What would I give season 1 of Interview with the Vampire? Oh, let's see. I don't know. 5 out of 5. I got to give it 5 out of 5 for that Mardi Gras party we threw at the end. What a way to take Lestat out. Throw him his own funeral party, basically, and make it Mardi Gras and make it like the biggest party in New Orleans. They knew how to catch that queen. You know what I'm saying? They knew how to take him down. Just threaten him with a good time, why don't you? Best way to get to Lestat. I loved that. I thought that was so great. He could never resist Mardi Gras. So yeah, it's a 5 out of 5 for me. I loved it. I can't wait to see where we go with season 2, which I will be starting. I'll come back and give my season 2 review. So make sure you're subscribed if you're not yet. And if you also want to check out our Discord, maybe we'll put a link to that somewhere below. So you can check out the links in the video description or in the pinned comment. I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you so much for taking your time to watch this video. Let me know what you think of season 1 down below and who are your favorite characters so far from the Immortal universe, or as I have known it from the books, the Vampire Chronicles. Although the Immortal universe also includes Mayfair Witches, which I've heard isn't very good. Let me know in the comments if I should check it out. Maybe I'll check out the first 2 episodes and see how I feel about it. I'm not as familiar with Anne Rice's Mayfair Witches, so I don't have as much depth on that for my knowledge base, but I'm intrigued. The Mayfair Witches pop into the Vampire Chronicles, so I'd be curious. And I also am going to check out Talamasca once I'm done season 2 of Interview with the Vampire, so stay tuned for that. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. And until then, friends, stay nerdy. Bye! And if you want to hear more about my thoughts on vampires in general, check this out.